So I've chosen this spot just off the trail for a couple of reasons. It's been really wet out here for literally the last several days. Everything is just saturated. So I've got a spot here where I've got a lot of downed wood nearby. I'm going to gather as many twigs as I can. One of the things I've learned cooking with these enclosed miniature stoves is that you need at least twice the amount of fuel that you think you're going to need to cook a meal. So this is a brand new stove. I'm going to burn it in, and then we're going to get cooking. Got some fire starter samples sent to me from JK Survival Bushcraft online. Somebody that I've spent a little time chatting with, and I'm going to take out one of these and rough it up, and I'm going to use that to get our fire started today. I'm going to grab some of these burrs. This stuff is off the ground and super dry, and it's going to make great tinder. I'll reach down in here and get some of these dry leaves. I'll regret reaching in here into these burrs, but there's just not a better tinder, especially as a flash tinder. All right, we got a raging fire going, and so the second reason I chose this spot is it's really close to a couple of fantastic ingredients for today's menu item. The first ingredient I'm going to grab from the woods is right here. This is a wild garlic mustard, or poor man's mustard, and these are perfect and in their prime. This has a garlic peppery taste, wild garlic mustard. And there's quite a bit of this wild garlic mustard in here, and right next to the garlic mustard is some bitter cress, and we've talked about that before. We're going to grab some of that, and that's going to add some great flavor and spice and nutrients to today's dish. And of course, we're going to grab some wild garlic onion. All I want's the greens. We're going to take some of that back. And I know what you're thinking. That's a lot of that garlicky flavor, but that's what's going to make these scallops fantastic. I'm going to get in here close because this today is the star attraction of our dish. The main menu item today is the daylily. We're going to make scalloped daylilies. So the beauty of these daylilies is that literally the entire plant is edible. But what we're really after today is just these bulbous tubers. And we're going to, we want the ones that are firm. So you got some there, probably some of last year's growth. And we want the ones that are nice and firm, new growth from this spring. We're going to set those aside. We're going to scallop these, and we're going to save some of the tops as well that are clean. And that's the beauty of the daylily. The entire plant is very edible. And come summer, the blossoms are just a fantastic trailside snack. And we're going to get as many of these bulbs as we possibly can. Now, a little tough digging these today because it's so muddy. I took them down to the creek, washed them out thoroughly, and of course, we're about to give them a little boil. And we're going to scallop them up with that mustard garlic onion, and the wonderful spice of the bitter cress. So we're going to get some of the top in there. Use all of this. That's all nice and clean. In fact, I find this down here close to the tuber is just delicious. It's got a fantastic flavor. It's very neutral. There's no bitterness to it. The greens, I think, taste somewhere between a pea and corn. It's the best way I know to describe it. Now, if I was preparing this for a competition cook, I would remove the stringy parts of the tuber. I would get those stringy roots off. They do tend to be a little bit fibrous, but this early in the season, it's really not a big deal, and it's going to add some nutrients and flavors for me. I'm going to go ahead and get some water in the pot. Not a lot. What we're going to do is we're going to boil down these tubers, and I'm going to do a little more prep with them, but I want to go ahead and get some onion in there and get the flavor out of the onion. And the next ingredient that we're going to add is this wild garlic mustard, or poor man's mustard. This is what we want, is just the greens. This is really going to flavor that water. Now, this garlic mustard also has a decent amount of salt in it. And so I'm putting this into the water early, including a few of the stems, because I want to boil that salt out, and that's going to help flavor our dish today. The next ingredient that I'm adding is bitter cress, or in this particular case, limestone bitter cress or purple cress. I'm going to pull and put the flower tops in here because they're the least bitter. And again, putting this in the water early is going to pull any of the sodium or salt out of these herbs, and it's going to flavor our water, and it's going to flavor these tubers nicely as they cook down. So this is where a lot of our natural spice is coming from.
That sodium is going to bind with the starches in the tubers.
Now I'm going to split these tubers in half. We do not want to overcook these tubers. They're small, fairly delicate. I want them to have the texture of a potato once they're cooked down. So again, we're just splitting them in half, or at least the larger ones. Now, the garlic mustard introduces a little bit of bitterness. If you're not accustomed to the bitterness that a lot of wild greens bring to the table, nice tip is we're going to boil this. We're going to pour this water off, or most of it. We're going to add some more water before we add our cheese sauce to scallop these. And that's going to mitigate nearly all of that bitterness that you typically get and may not enjoy from your wilds. So let me get the rest of these split out. So as you can see, we've split those down. I'm going to add those to boil. So we've got that boiling fairly aggressively. That's good. On this cool morning, this fire feels wonderful. Trying to get some larger pieces in there, because now that we got the fire burning, we want some coals so we can keep this simmering as we finish the cooking process. If you're into a lot of camp cooking, especially backpacking, become friends with dry ingredients. So a lot of these dry ingredients particularly this one. This is basically just dehydrated cheese and dairy product. It is real product, and it has tremendous flavor. And we're going to add probably the equivalent of a couple tablespoons just to start with. But this also has in it, I think, a little onion powder and some garlic. And it has a thickener that's going to thicken this. So, oh, if you could only smell this right now. Thin that just a little bit. This is a beautiful green. And we're going to go ahead and plate that up. Remember, I told you we were going to keep aside some of the onion and that bitter cress, which is kind of interesting that it's called bitter cress because it in fact is not bitter at all. There's nothing bitter about it. Now, if I were plating this, for a competition type setting, I would have removed my tubers and separated them, and I would have plated them so that they're on top. This is still going to look delicious. And then we're going to add our garnish. This really is more than just a garnish. These bittercress flowers, blossoms, have a very spicy, little more green onion. They have a wonderful spicy flavor, almost a peppery flavor. And so this gives this dish a great deal of flavor for us. So let's give it a try. All right, now we're ready to eat some of these au gratin or scalloped daylily tubers. So the daylily tuber itself, it's more fibrous like a turnip, the texture of a turnip, a little bit of the flavor of a radish, to be honest, maybe a cross between a radish and a potato. It's not as starchy, it's not as high in carbs. It actually does have some protein and loaded with nutrients. It's just a powerhouse of nutrients. And by the time you add the other greens that we've added, the garlic mustard, the green onion, garlic, wild garlic onion, the bitter cress and the bitter cress blossoms, there's a good deal of vitamin C, vitamin A. This is a very nutritious dish. The cheese sauce makes it a comfort food. So from both a survival perspective and just enjoying yourself in the woods, this is very enjoyable. This tastes like a scalloped dish I might expect to find in a high-end restaurant.